Hello and welcome to this special show. Today we have with us the chairman of MARICO, Harsh Mariwala, joining us on the show to share his success mantra and many of the learnings over the past many years of his journey in building MARICO. Harsh Mariwala, so good to have you on the show. Now, my first question, our entire world has changed in the last couple of years. The COVID times have been unprecedented. What are the most important changes that you see? And in your view, how has doing business really transformed in this particular phase?
So I think there are two ways of looking at COVID. One is the negative side, which all of us are fully aware, whether it's its impact on health or deaths or getting infected and then, suffering from it for a longer period of time. And then there are some positive long-term benefits of COVID, which we also must reckon to deal with, And these positives are to do with how do you look at all the stakeholders and not just your own shareholders. So when I talk of stakeholders, I refer to your own employees, your customers, your associates, and finally the society. So organizations have realized that it pays to look at all the stakeholders and not just shareholders. So it's very important to be authentic and empathetic with your own employees. And I think that's a big leadership learning for all of us. And I hope and I reckon that this leadership shift will continue forever. Third set of learnings, I would say, is that some of the opportunities which the pandemic has thrown up, whether it is opportunities in the area of digital space, whether it's Zoom meetings or virtual meetings, learning for children, e-consultation, e-commerce, we have dealt with it for last almost 12 to 18 months. And, we've got used to dealing with this.
Yes.
So that habit is deeply ingrained in us in terms of dealing virtually,
Now, would you also agree that agility is the mainstay for any business to really survive in these changing times?
This really came out very, very loud and clear when the first lockdown happened, And I think agility just doesn't happen all of a sudden. The culture which you have in the organization which leads to agility is very important. And that agility can only come in a culture which is very open, which is very transparent, which is boundarylessness, and which is empowering, And this is what we have in MARICO, we have concentrated on for the last 10, 15 years. And it really played out so well when the first wave happened that within a few days, our factories were running. Because there's no physical supervision, everybody was working virtually and they were empowered, and there was a huge degree of collaboration between the members to make things happen, whether it's a new product development or supply chain issues or manufacturing or sales to distributors in a very uncertain environment where there are a lot of gaps in terms of people not coming to work, distributors not opening, retailers not opening. So, and combine that with the digital kind of opportunity, which I talked about.
What has been your strategy and learning through this particular process over the last 1.5 years?
See, I think one, I talked about dealing with our members and, the human side. The other is the opportunity in terms of agility. How do you manage the supply chain? The opportunities which are thrown up by healthcare. We have launched a range of foods which are healthy foods, which have got a very good traction in these times. So combine this with that, and then I think you have to look at, as I said, all the stakeholders, which include the society also. What are you doing about it? How do you drive innovations? Great opportunity for you to be innovative. And we launched a contest amongst our own employees. They were sitting at home, most innovative ideas. How do you work from home and be effective? That was the second thing. And third was, how do you improve your cost structure? So there are ways of involving people and, progressing on certain things which were not happening earlier, because people want to, especially at middle and lower levels, they want to, and they may not be as engaged in terms of workload. You need to leverage their time to drive certain initiatives which the organization should be doing,
Yes. Any one particular or a few challenges that you remember facing and even overcoming them during this phase?
No, I think it's a combination of various things. But the first phase was the most crucial, I thought, when the lockdown happened about last March, I think. And, there was a crisis of migrant labor. And it was fear of the unknown. People didn't know what is going to happen to us, And how do you manage the fear of the unknown in terms of your own supply chain? How to mitigate all the anxiety, stress of your own members, mental health issues, physical health issues. And I think to me that was very crucial. And we learned a lot from the first phase, which we found that the second phase was far more easier to manage, because in the first phase, again, there was panic buying. People don't know what's going to happen. So we had to, in some essential categories of products, we had to over-manufacture to take care of the opportunity. So I would say the first phase was really the testing ground. The second phase has been relatively smoother, except that the health crisis hit us much, much harder. So, but for health, the second phase was much smoother. And I think the impact of second phase on business going forward is going to be lesser than the first phase, because the first phase of lockdown was a complete lockdown. This is a partial lockdown. And we also have learned to live with COVID and all the uncertainties, anxieties. It's so unpredictable, and one doesn't know whether the third wave is going to come also. Nobody in the world can really predict.
No, we can't predict, and there's no point predicting if we cannot have the ability to even change. But I wanted to ask you, now, how do you see the recovery on ground, and what do you see in the near future developing, especially when it comes to consumerism and your sector?
So, as I said earlier, there are certain areas where the consumer has become far more sensitive, whether it's sustainable products or it's healthy products, or going to gyms or immunity products. And I think some of these trends will continue, or digital way of working and buying and, interacting. These trends will continue for sure. Coming to a short-term environment, I can predict only for one quarter, because it looks like I'm presuming that the third wave will not hit us in July to September quarter, and things will start opening up. I'm quite optimistic about the next quarter in terms of its impact on the business. And we will see much, much higher growth rates compared to what we saw in the first quarter, which is April to June. So I'm very optimistic that the second quarter should be good, but provided that the third wave doesn't hit us and we are not again forced to go into lockdowns.
Right. So stepping away from this, Harsh Mariwala, you've had a long, successful career in building Marico. I wanted to understand also that you're in a space which is very fast moving. Consumer demand can also shift very dramatically, and the competition is fierce. What has been your success mantra in staying afloat and also beating the competition over the years?
I think the biggest success mantra, I would say, is to be in categories where you have a strong right to win. And I think that's very important. So you need to identify categories where you can be a pioneer, or you have an innovation pipeline to offer, which is much ahead of what competition is offering, and become a market leader. If you are a market leader, and it so happens then whatever segment we are there, except for one or two segments, we are market leaders. 95% of our turnover comes out of market leadership position in that particular segment. And I think that's very, very important, because in a segment like edible oil, I'm not a market leader in edible oil, but I'm a market leader in premium healthy edible oils, which is Saffola. So the key thing is to identify those and then stick with it, rather than going and becoming greedy and dilute your positioning. Positioning of the brand is very crucial. Identifying the right category of segments where you can become market leaders is very, very crucial. For example, shampoos, I know that I cannot be market leader, but I can be a market leader in a small segment of shampoos, in anti-lice shampoos. So I think what we have had that kind of debate internally, that we have to be market leaders in whatever we do. And for that to happen, we need to identify the right segment and be consistent after being a market leader. And that market leadership can only come out of some pioneering moves or innovative moves. And all that can happen only through a very good talent and culture. So talent, culture, combined with choosing the right spaces where you'll operate and creating a right to win, is the way forward.
Right. So talent as well as also innovation bandwidth, that's very important. But you've built some very big brands which are household names like Saffola, Parachute. So Harsh Mariwala, what are the most important tenets for building a brand and also keeping its numero uno position after building it?
So I think the key thing is, what is the consumer looking for? Can you identify a need for the consumer, and what is the consumer looking for, and how can the brand satisfy that? both rationally and emotionally. I think brands has to look at both the rational side as well as the emotional side. How do you build that emotional bonding with the consumer? It is just not a product, but a certain bonding, and that's where the purpose of the brand comes in. The brands have to have a purpose. For example, in a brand like Saffola, we just don't sell the oil. We sell and we try to influence the Saffola consumer and non-consumer also in terms of leading a healthy lifestyle. Because leading a healthy lifestyle can prevent a lot of diseases, whether it's weight control or whether it is cholesterol control, through dieting, through exercising, through meditation, is something which we talk a lot about for promoting the Saffola brand name. And we also have Saffola Healthy Art Foundation, which gives customized diets and a lot of other advice to consumers to lead a healthy lifestyle. I think that plays a very, very important role in making the brand very, very strong, And for Parachute also, as you're rightly saying, it is generations have used their product. So how do you build that emotional bond where grandmother to mother to daughter to, it just passes through generations, And that bond has been very, very strong, and we have to go on maintaining that emotional side, apart from offering a product which is far superior than what competition is offering, and be contemporary in terms of packaging and advertising, so that, the brand remains ahead of competition.
Right. So competition is one very important aspect of any business. Harsh Mariwala, over the years, you have learned how to beat competition, how to stay in the business in different situations as well. To the entrepreneurs today, the new ones and the startup space is booming. What will you suggest in terms of your choice, advice on how the entrepreneurs should go about their business? What is that one secret sauce that they need to have?
So I think if you're a new entrepreneur, and you will not get all the answers in the beginning, you have to have an idea which you need to test out. It has traction amongst the potential customers. And then in spite of having an idea, ultimately how you execute that idea is also very important. And there are bound to be gaps in terms of what you have built into your execution model. So it's very important to develop a proposition and again test it out amongst consumers. No amount of market research will give you all the answers. The key thing is to be open to ideas from consumers, be flexible, go on changing the business model until you arrive at the solution which appeals to the consumer. And solution could cover in a branded product. It could cover starting from the brand name to packaging to pricing to the product to positioning. So you have to look at all these aspects and try and offer something which is relevant to the consumer after testing out. Do a prototype on a small scale and then scale up. Luckily, I think many of the entry barriers which we were facing earlier when I started business have vanished because of the emergence of digital advertising, digital marketplaces like the e-com and all that. So there are huge number of opportunities, as well as many entrepreneurs that are looking at tapping opportunities. So you have to have a proposition which appeals to the consumer, where you have a right to win. And then as you progress, you need to go on scaling up and continuously be in touch with consumers in terms of their needs, and go on offering something which is relevant, and always be 2 steps ahead of competition.
That's right. And you're also spending a lot of time with budding entrepreneurs and also giving your key advice to them and mentorship also. Tell us about that particular program.
So I'm running an organization which is known as Ascent. And these are for entrepreneurs who want to scale up, who want to learn from each other. And this is something which is funded by me. Any entrepreneur who has a certain size can apply through www.ascentfoundation.in. And we will evaluate you. And it's open. Earlier, we were only present in Mumbai, then Chennai. And now with virtual world, we have opened it all across India. All I can assure you is that if you have a certain size and if you meet certain criteria through a group interaction, you will benefit a lot. And my personal advice to those entrepreneurs who are listening to this is, please try this out. It is fully worth it. You learn a lot. We have almost about 1,800 members today. And it's growing. We want to be 1,000 members by the end of the year. And we are looking at entrepreneurs who want to learn from each other in joining this journey.
Right. And finally, I wanted to also ask you, what about giving back to the society? There is a sustainability thrust angle also, and CSR is only a part of it.
Yeah.
How is corporate India gearing up for this challenge?
So I think partly because of the legislation which requires 2% of your profits to be given to CSR. So organizations which were not doing CSR have been forced to start CSR. But I strongly feel that CSR has to be tied into the organization's needs and the organization's business. And it has to involve people within the organization. It is just not giving donation. I, for one, believe in active giving, where you are actively involved in whatever you're doing. So our CSR focuses around innovation. We run a MARICO Innovation Foundation, where I personally spend a lot of time in driving innovation, fueling innovation within India in different sectors through various initiatives, helping innovative organizations improve performance, innovation awards, scale-up programs, innovation contests, and so on. And then we also do a lot of work in the area of agriculture, because most of our raw materials are agri-based. So we help improve farmers' productivity. We work a lot with farmers in Tamil Nadu and Kerala for improving their productivity as far as copra is concerned. We have been able to improve productivity to the extent of 15%. And we believe that, based on the base number of farmers we are impacting, we are able to add about almost 200 crores of income annually because of improved productivity. So it's very important that you be focused and you involve people, and each of them, we have a few people full-time working on these initiatives. We also work a lot in the area of girl education and also virtual education, teaching kids to learn English. So I think it centers around education, agriculture, and innovation.
All right. So those are important aspects. And yes, the world is moving towards sustainable businesses as well. Harsh Mariwala, it was great chatting with you. Thanks so much for all your insightful
Thank you, Nisha. My
thoughts.
pleasure. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.